welcome back to Eyewitness News this morning. If you've got a question for Charlie O'Hara, any legal advice you need, give us a shout right now. The number to call is 436-1212. Now, we did have one caller on a little bit earlier, and here's his question, Charlie. He's renting a place, and he says he's got bed bugs in his place, and the landlord's not being very helpful. Does this guy have any other recourse besides just trying to contact his landlord?
Well, I think anytime you rent anywhere, it has to be inhabitable. You have to be able to live there, and you have to be able to live there safely or without a bunch of bugs running you around or putting you in the hospital. So if you're in a situation that it's not livable, you can't live there, I think you have a right to move out. You need to tell your landlord and ask him to do something. If they don't do anything, then you can move out. And obviously in this situation, if it's a health concern, I think you need to call the health department. I mean, we can't force people to live in places and pay money that are causing them problems.
Would it be hard to prove that it was not your fault?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the situation, whether he rented the bedding, whether he brought the bedding in, whether it's his fault or the other. But if it's the fault of the landlord and they won't correct it, you need to get out of there.
All right, one question I do want to ask you. It's about a case that we're talking about a lot recently. A 16-year-old and two 17-year-olds have been charged. Now, they're being held as juveniles, but the state is now trying to charge them as adults. What is that whole process, and how does the state have to go about charging them as adults, and what's the burden of proof there? I
think you're referring to the rape case in Heights. Well, what happens if you're under 18 and you commit a crime, and depending on the kind of crime, you can be what we call motioned up to be an adult, or they can file a motion to try you as an adult, which would cause you, if you go to prison, to go to adult prison, which is really serious. And they do that for real serious crimes. So what the judge would have, he has a preliminary hearing and then a hearing, or he or she would have a preliminary hearing and a hearing to determine if there's enough evidence to go to trial. And in addition to that, whether you're the type of person that should be tried as an adult rather than a juvenile. I mean, if you're someone that's just real naive and got pulled into it, you know, by a bunch of people influencing you, and they think the juvenile system can help you, which is the basis of the juvenile system, then they want to keep you down there. If they think you're somebody that just is not going to do what you're supposed to do, or you ought to be up the adults and be punished like that, then the judge can determine to have you tried as an adult. Doesn't mean you're guilty, it just means you get punished as an adult rather than punished as a juvenile. What's
the burden of proof on the state to show that they should be tried as adult, or is this entirely up to the judge?
Well, it's really kind of up to the judge, but they do have a burden of proof, but it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It would be less than that, but it would kind of determine on the facts, and the judge is going to look at it, but the judge doesn't have to have beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty, but the judge can look at all the evidence. The judge has the ability to look at everything and determine what's going to happen. Usually in a case that serious, unless there's really compelling reasons to stay in juvenile court, a lot of times the judge, if it goes to hearing, will have you go to adult court.
In the juvenile system, you touched on it just a moment ago, when we keep kids in a juvenile system, it's most likely that they're trying to just rehab the kids and make them, you know, just try to, I don't know how the real way to put it, because I don't want to say rehab kids, but if you're staying in a juvenile system for a reason, what is that reason?
Well, that would be to help the children. I mean, we think we all, when we're really young, we sometimes make stupid mistakes, and we don't want to punish someone with a record that shows up forever for doing that, and that's what the juvenile system started as. It's kind of progressed a little bit now that it's a lot more serious. Some of the things do show up, especially with the internet, because everything shows up.
Right.
And so it's not quite as rehabilitative as it started out. And especially because now you can even have a jury trial at times over there. So.
All right. Thanks so much, Charlie. We love having you on, and thank you guys for a call, and we're back here in just a minute.